Hi, this is Mrs. Gerhart, and today I'm going to go over drawing sketches for your relief sculpture. So the first thing you're going to need to do is either locate your folder or a piece of blank white paper, and you're going to find an empty space. So I already have some things in the middle, I already have some things on the back, so I'm going to open up to a new empty space. You need about one piece of paper to do the work. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to split it into 4 parts because you're going to come up with 4 different ideas for your sketches. Then after I have my beginning work, I'm going to start to think of ideas that I can sketch. I can look back to my top 10 list. I can look online at artists I like or other images that I'm drawn to. I can look on the internet for other images and start to work from there. You're going to have 3 main choices as you start to work on this idea. You can work from a mandala, you can create something that is representational, or you can create something that is abstract. So you could abstract something that's representational or just start to work with different shapes and lines. You should have no letters and no numbers. You will also need to show repetition in your pieces because you're going to be connecting at least 20 different pieces together. So my first idea, I'm going to start with the idea of a bee and a hive, and I started to look online and I'm looking up some different pictures, some different images, so I can get a good idea of what a bee actually looks like, and then I can start to draw what that looks like. And I looked up bee images for the wings so I can start to get an idea of what the wing details look like, so I can start to draw some of those parts into my overall picture. I'm going to start to get the body of the bee. I'm going to start to make the different coloring on the bee. Right now I'm just working with pencil and then I'm continuing to add those details. I'm starting to also think, if I create this out of cardboard, how can I create those parts? Like maybe the legs are a really thin piece of cardboard, or maybe they're made out of some other material. And I'm thinking of a bee on the hive, so I'm looking carefully, and we've got a hexagon, a 6-sided shape, and I'm going to start to create that as a background for the bee to be sitting on top of. So I'm starting to create that background piece overall. Let's say I continue, I finish drawing this idea out overall. Then I can go to my next idea. Maybe for this one I'm coming up with a mandala. And so for this piece, I might start with a circle, and then I can work my way from there. So maybe I'm adding something in the middle, then maybe I'm using repetition, and remember, this should use radial symmetry, which means that it's the same all the way around the piece. So you can see I'm adding one in each quarter of this piece that are kind of like these teardrop shapes. I might use rectangles, triangles, ovals. I'm thinking about how it's going to look the same all the way around that piece. So maybe I'm adding some circles in here. Maybe I'm adding some rectangle pieces. You get to decide, but you're adding all of those parts together. I think you're starting to see the idea. I'll show you a finished piece in just a few moments. My next one, I'm going to start to abstract, but I'm thinking of the idea of flowers. So I'm going to stylize them a little bit. I'm going to change them from, realistic looking flowers, and I'm going to start to add maybe a background. Maybe it's going to look a little bit like a field, and then I'm going to start to add some of the different parts in my overall piece. And I can have an idea of how I might create this in cardboard, or I might figure it out as I go along if this is the one that I choose to actually create. So I was looking at some different stylized pictures online. I was looking at some artists that I like and working from some of their work, and then changing it up just a little bit to create and make my own unique idea. So I'm going to place 3 of these flowers together, and I think you can start to see how this is starting to come together. Then for my 4th idea, I'm thinking kind of a landscape, but I'm going to abstract some birch trees because I like nature. That's on my top 10 list. So I'm going to start to think, okay, what kind of overall shape do I want for my piece? Then maybe I'm starting to add what are those birch trees going to look like? What direction are they going to start to grow in my overall piece? And I'm starting to draw that in. Then maybe I'm starting to think, okay, maybe I could cut out some of the designs that would typically be seen on a birch tree and working overall. And then maybe I'm also going to layer some abstract leaves. So when I'm layering, I might use my eraser. So I drew lightly first, and then I'm going to start to combine those ideas together, and I'm going to erase. So that once I'm finished, you'll see my finished copy here, I have 4 different ideas. Notice that each one of them uses repetition in some way. Here I see it in the hive. Here I see it in the leaves as well as in some of the markings on the trees. On the abstract flowers, I see some repetition through shapes and different lines that are repeated throughout the piece. And then through the mandala, remember we're working with repetition through radial symmetry in that idea.